Alrighty, today is a solo episode, and there's no guests, just me walking through four things that I've been into lately and why I think each of those will be worth your time. So these solo episodes are a little different. They're just things that I've been reading, doing, or thinking about, and I wanted to share them and hopefully provide you a little value. Here are the topics that we're going to cover today, and you can decide if you want to continue to listen or watch this. The first one is going to be the history of spoon fishing lures, which I'll have here on the video version of this. Pretty niche, but I think the background's pretty interesting. The second topic is going to be the new Harry Potter HBO series. I just finished reading the book series for the first time, so I have some thoughts. The third topic is going to be discussing Red Rising, which is a book series that my brother put me on recently, and I'm pretty obsessed with it right now. And the fourth is going to be how I'm trying to stand out in from an outreach standpoint for my show, and not only just with my show, but in anything that I'm doing with the increased reliance on AI. And I'm trying something different, and I'll talk about why. So we'll start light with spoon fishing lures. And again, if you're watching on video on YouTube, I've got the lure right here. I'm showing it to the camera, but essentially it kind of looks like a spoon with a hook on it. And I was just down in Florida and I built a new beach fishing setup that I could use inshore and offshore. And I was throwing this spoon lure into the surf a lot, trying to catch anything that I could. It was February and cold a bit in the panhandle. So I was unsuccessful, but I was chucking this thing pretty far. And I mean, as I was doing it, I was just thinking, like, this is just a curved piece of metal. It's not that fancy. There's no scent. There's not really a complicated design to it or anything. So I wondered, why does it actually work? And then I got down a YouTube rabbit hole that ChatGPT and a few other tools helped me with. And I found out that these things have been around since the 1830s. So for anyone who isn't into fishing or have used these before, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's curved, usually oval shaped piece of metal. And when you reel it in, it's going to wobble and flash, usually if there's sunlight. And the fish will think that it's an injured bait fish. There's really three reasons that I understand for why it works. Number one is the flash. If you're on camera here, it looks like there's fish scales on here. And when the light hits it, it flashes. And the second is that it wobbles. So it will mimic something that's hurt or disoriented. And the fish will naturally want to eat whatever that bait fish is. And then it's also, like I said, heavy enough to just get a mile. You can cast these things forever. And it's easy not having to put live bait on. Um, and as far as the history goes, the story is that there was a guy named Julio Beal. Maybe I might be pronouncing that wrong, but it was the 1830s. He dropped a spoon overboard off of a boat and he watched it sink. And there was a fish that was trying to eat it. It was striking it. And he went home and he bent one into a fishing lure and realized that it worked. And then by 1852, he had a US patent on it. And at that point, he was beginning to manufacture and sell them. When you're using a lure like this, it's not really like a gimmick or anything. I mean, these things have been around for 200 years, a lot longer than any of you have been fishing, which is pretty neat. And I mentioned earlier that the sunlight plays a big role, but so does color. So I have a silver one on camera here. You want to use that when there's bright sun. It's really a clear water option, and it's going to mirror light the way that a real bait fish would in those kind of conditions. I was actually using a gold one while I was down there, but gold and copper are better in overcast or stained water because they're going to reflect a warmer light and show up better when the visibility is a little lower. And then there's also some painted finishes like red and white. And those are for when you need contrast or when the fish are feeding on something other than standard bait fish. So in the surf, wind and the surf's just off the beach. And in the surf, wind and chop are going to make the flash harder to see. So I'll go heavier and sometimes louder in these kind of conditions. But it's a pretty simple lure for your fishing setup. And if you fish at all, saltwater or freshwater, just pick a size. I didn't really dig into it that much because I still am trying to understand the different sizing. It's not that complicated, but pick the right color, and that's really all there is to it. It's a lot of fun. We'll now jump to the second topic, which is the new Harry Potter HBO series. Like I mentioned, I just finished reading the seven Harry Potter books. And that was my first time actually going through from start to finish. So I grew up watching the movies, like most people, but I never read the books. And I'll be very blunt, the books are incredible. They're a lot more detailed than the movies in a lot of ways. And there's just so much more, which is exactly why I'm paying attention to this new series because they're going to have a lot more time for each of the books. So HBO is doing an adaptation of all seven books. New cast, new showrunner. It's going to be a full reboot, not connected to the films in any way. Production started at Warner Bros. Studio in the UK last July. So that's July of 2025. And the plan right now is one season per book, which would be about a decade long commitment if they see it all the way through. Um, the current target that I've seen for season one is 2027. And HBO execs that I've read about have said that it will be early in the year, which is great, but there hasn't been a specific date, at least as of this recording, which is early March 2026. So, one thing that I did want to point out that I found pretty interesting was that Warner Bros. Discovery, which owns HBO, um, just announced a deal to merge with Paramount. And it was about $110 billion deal. I might have my numbers off there, so don't quote me on that. But that was announced at the end of February 2026, and doesn't mean that HBO is being sold off separately. It's just it's a larger corporate combination. And Harry Potter is almost certainly a flagship franchise that they're going to protect. I think the bigger risk would be delays with the leadership changes from the merger. I don't think there's any risk that it'll be canceled, but knock on wood. The films had to cut a lot out of them. There were several characters that were not even in the movies and subplots. There was a lot slower of a world build in some of the books, especially the later ones. That I think with a TV series, that problem's not going to be present at all. And I think if they're able to execute on it, that we'll get a lot more time inside Hogwarts and a lot of stuff that got squeezed out of the movies will hopefully find its way in, which will be neat. So if you only know the movies, read the books. I think they're worth it. Even if you do audiobooks, I like audiobooks a lot. The story just has a lot more to it than you would think. You got more time with the characters. And then when you watch the movies the next time around, they're actually a lot better too, because you pick up on little things that you might have missed. Jumping now to the third segment here. My brother recently recommended another book series to me as I was wrapping up Harry Potter called Red Rising. It was a couple months ago. And I don't take every book recommendation just because I get a lot of them. But usually me and him have the same taste when it comes to books, movies, what we find funny or entertaining. So I went ahead and gave it a shot recently, and I'm hooked. And I'm gonna try to pitch this without spoiling anything because there's a lot to this series that is pretty neat. Red Rising, it's a sci-fi series, and the world is built around a color-coded caste system. The story follows a guy named Darrow who's at the bottom of that system. And the first book I just finished. I mean, I'm only on the second one. I can't stop. It feels really similar to Hunger Games or Ender's Game, if you've read either of those. But the series just expands way beyond that. If you like Dune, Hunger Games, or just big world building in general, it's in that same lane. I think the one of the reasons that it hooks people is the pacing. I mean, at the beginning of the first book, it does move a little slow, but this second one's really moving quick. They don't make you wait to get hooked into it. It's fast, and the world building is layered too. It's kind of one of those things where you can go as deep as you want. There's plenty of YouTube breakdowns and podcast and cool stuff on it, which I like to go deep into stuff that I'm interested in, immunity. Um, but there's really two arcs across the book series. Sorry, the original like three books was Red Rising, the second one Golden Sun, which I'm on right now, and then Morning Star. And then there's another three: Iron Gold, Dark Age, and Lightbringer. It sounds kind of nerdy, but I mean, just give it a chance. It's good. Don't judge the series on the first 100 pages. Kind of reminds me of when I started watching Game of Thrones, the TV show. Uh, I struggled to get into it the first season, and I remember my buddy Will was the one that got me into it, and he just kept pushing me, and he would explain all the names and the characters, so I would get hooked, and then it hooked me, and that's exactly how this has gone too. So be patient. Um, Jumping to my fourth segment, standing out right now when everyone is using AI. So I have been watching AI very closely, and because I'm really interested in it, I think it's neat, and I think it's going to change a lot even over the next 3 to 5 years, especially for white collar workers in particular. And that's kind of where I'm working. Um, there's emails, LinkedIn messages, all these intros that it's like the AI slop. You can read it and know right away what you're dealing with. And my reaction to that has been I mean, what I've found to be most people to be most responsive to is to do the opposite of that. I've been trying to be really detailed and try to personalize and put effort and time into certain things, like inviting people onto this show. That's one example. I've been writing handwritten letters to people that I would be interested in learning from and talking to. And it takes me about a half hour to do one of these because I sit down and I research them and I read about them and I'm actually interested in their background. And I want them to know that I am serious about inviting them on and learning from them. And I think in a world where most outreach right now can be low effort and scalable, effort itself will become more of a signal. So a handwritten letter is not scalable on purpose. And that's the point. You're showing someone that you're taking the time before asking for theirs and you're serious about learning from them. And it's to me a branding move. You're really defining what you stand for by what you're willing to do that other people probably aren't. So I just try to do one a day, sometimes two, more on the weekends. And I have a lot of fun doing it. I'll research the person. Like I said, I'll actually read or watch or listen to whatever shaped my interest in them, whether it's a YouTube channel, a business that they have. It's not just a quick Google scan or anything. And then I pull two or three things that I was interested in, like a quote that they have, a project that they worked on, a decision they made recently, or a lesson they shared, something that's actually real and meaningful. And then I write the letter like a human being. I try to keep it concise and not waste their time, but also to be thorough. And I'll include what I would want to talk about, how long it would take, and that no prep is needed on their end. I just want to learn from their experiences. I close with a genuine offer to provide them value because at the end of the day, it's a value exchange and most to anything that you're dealing with. Now, I think the reason it works is because it proves to people that you're going to do your homework before asking them anything. But I can also see the downside of that, and a lot of times I can't find people's business address. I don't ever send anything to anyone's personal address. I don't really spend any time doing that. I think that's an invasion of privacy. But if they have a business or a mailing address on their website for their brand or whatever it is that they do that I'm interested in, that's when I go ahead and take this route. And a lot of times you don't hear back. I mean, most of them don't. But if I send multiple touch points over the course of 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, eventually some of them are going to crack and hopefully see that I'm not trying to waste their time. I genuinely want to give them a platform and learn from them and hopefully allow you as the listener to do the same. But one other thing that I found too is that even when it doesn't land the way I want it to and they don't respond, the process makes me better in some ways. Like the research, the writing. Um, I think that I practice something useful by learning, by doing that. And I'm learning about others and seeing what works and what doesn't. Even if they don't say yes or respond to me, at least I tried and I can't knock myself for that. So you're probably wondering, why do I care? And my answer to you is like, there's a lot of different ways you could do this. So if you're applying for a job, you're trying to find a mentor, you're building a network, and I would advise you to add a high friction step that others won't do to prove to that person why you're worth a intro or just a few minutes of their time. It doesn't have to be a handwritten letter. That's just an example, but maybe a 1 minute personalized voice message or a short screen recording where you're going through their website, showing them an idea you have for their company to add value. Um, a one page piece of feedback on a post that they put out on social media. The rule is really the same no matter what format that you're using. Um, one specific insight is going to beat 10 generic compliments every time, I think. So I started this show because I'm young and I know that I should be listening more right now than talking. And these solo episodes are obviously the opposite of that. I would prefer to have guests on here to learn from. But I try to post every Friday weekly. And sometimes I don't have a guest that has responded to me, like I said. And that's when you guys get to listen to me rant for a little bit and hopefully give you value. But the podcast is my excuse to learn from people I admire and hopefully share that with you as the listener. So I think that my challenge for you on this last little idea is to think about what's one person that you should reach out to this month with a high effort note. It could even be like someone in your family or an old friend you haven't talked to. Write them a letter, make a phone call, do it because it shows that you care about them and that you are willing to spend time to learn from them and have a relationship with them. Sorry. So to close everything up, that was my 4 topics. Spoon lures, right here. Harry Potter on HBO coming in 2027. I'm recommending you to read Red Rising, the book series. It's fantastic, a lot of fun. And then finally, we covered standing out in the world of AI outreach, dominating a lot, and how to show people that you care and you want to learn genuinely. So if you got something out of it today, would appreciate it if you'd share it with someone who might also find value. That's the best way to support this show here. And if you have any topics that you would find interesting too to cover in future solo episodes, I would be open to hearing it too. I'm all ears. So appreciate you taking the time and we'll talk soon.